Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, April the 6th, 2023. I'm Zach Ewing. Not wearing the green jacket, but the closest thing I could come up with on this.
Yeah,
Masters
I can't wear green.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. I'm not in the office today. I'm kind of feeling under the weather, so I stayed home, and so I could wear my green. So it worked out. I don't have my green screen. So yeah, got my Masters green on today. It is Masters Thursday. We have a three-way tie at Augusta. That's just now became a three-way tie. Brooks Koepka just rolled in a birdie putt on 18 to equal Jon Rahm and Viktor Hovland atop the leaderboard. We'll talk some Masters. We'll look at some live odds. We will also talk that wild and crazy Pelicans game from last night and what's next for the Pels. We'll also talk our first impressions of Major League Baseball this season and some NFL drafts. So good show, Jim.
Oh, for sure. It's a big week. You know, April's kind of a weird month. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's kind of one of those months that you lie in the weeds. If you were sitting around in October and talking about what the best months of the year for sports were, you probably wouldn't think much of April. But, I mean, really, you know, you had the two basketball championships last weekend, the Masters, the NFL draft, baseball starting, basketball playoffs starting. If you're in hockey playoffs. I mean, to me, it's up there with one of the best months of the year, sports-wise, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it depends on how you feel about the NFL draft. Some people really get into it. Other people are kind of like, just tell me what happens when it's over. It's boring to watch. And so if you're not a big NFL draft person, I could see where April's not your month. But, yeah, if you do like the draft and you like all the talking heads and stuff, you combine that with the Masters, and like you said, Major League Baseball starting, all the playoffs in the NHL and NBA. Horace is here. Mr. Urquhart, how are you? Leave your comments.
Mr. Urquhart.
I want to know your bets on the Masters, anything else you got going on. Who hit the Pelicans live money line last night? I got them at plus 210, but as we discussed, there were better and much worse prices available throughout the night.
I had the Grizz before the game at plus 215, and then when the Pels went down, I don't know if I did it. No, it wasn't at halftime. It was definitely live at some point. I think I did it when they got down again early in the fourth quarter. I got them at plus 700. So it was a no-lose situation. And frankly, even when I had the Grizz, I was hoping I would lose the bet. I didn't think they were going to win last night going in. I know we had them in daily best bets, but I only put it there because the line didn't make any sense, and we know how we talk about when lines don't make sense. You listen to what Vegas tells you. Vegas was right again, and so I bet the money line, and again had an opportunity to hedge it to where can't lose, and that's what happened last night. So,
Vegas got a little lucky on that one, but the weird line was right. That was just a strange game.
Well,
we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook here on Bayou Bets. Check out NOLA.com/Caesars. Get your first bet risk-free up to $1,250. If you lose it, you get that money back in form of a bonus bet. So check that out. And also check out the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Give us a like today. We appreciate that. We'll have some giveaways coming throughout the spring, by the way, for those who are subscribed to the channel. So
I'm subscribed. Am I eligible?
You are not eligible. Because I'll just throw your name right out of the hat.
Come on, man.
I'm strict like that. Headlines for today. I mentioned literally 60 seconds before we came on the air, Brooks Koepka rolled in a birdie putt. So that's now a three-way share for the lead at the Masters. Viktor Hovland, Jon Rahm, and now Brooks Koepka. We'll talk about Masters storylines, look at some odds here in a few minutes. The Pelicans, again, huge rally down 14 early in the fourth quarter. They just started raining three-pointers. I mean, unbelievable. Came all the way back. They were ahead by 6 with 11 seconds left and somehow needed overtime to win the game.
5 seconds left.
Win. Yeah, I mean, just
they were up by 6 with 5 seconds left.
They were up by 6 with 11 seconds left and had the ball with a free throw to come.
Yeah.
And a 91% free throw shooter at the line in Trey Murphy, where if he makes that, it's basically over. And instead, everything that happened after that happened. So unbelievable. Big baseball series this weekend for LSU. Number 1 Tigers facing number 6 South Carolina. And then we mentioned the Saints and the NFL draft. Visited with some quarterbacks this week. So we'll talk about that too. Want to talk real quick about that LSU baseball series because we asked the question, LSU women's basketball, of course, winning the national title on Sunday. We asked the question, what would be the next LSU sport to win the national title? And I guess I'm not surprised that baseball won. I'm a little surprised at how overwhelming it was. We had, I want to say it was like 200 votes on the dot, and it was perfect splits. 75% for baseball, 10% for football, 10% for a women's basketball repeat. I got to disagree with how lopsided this is because, yes, baseball's number one. It is hard to win a baseball national title. Ask Tennessee. They were the best team all year last year.
It's hard to win any national title.
Yeah, it is hard. It should not be 75% to anything.
Well, I mean, it's just that's where I thought too. That's what I voted. I just think that if you're asking what the next chance is, because even if they don't win another title, if they don't win a title in football, if they don't win the title in women's basketball, I think baseball, even if they don't win it this year, I think they're going to be in good shape again next year. You know, you talked about gymnastics and track, and I'm not keen on those sports. And
do you not count that or what?
I mean, it counts. Yeah, sure, it would count if they won it. But you know, you had a good point about track, and maybe they will. But I mean, I don't pay attention to sports that either I can't bet on or I'm not going to bet on, and those are both sports that I don't even know if you can bet on them or not. I wouldn't bet on them. So there you go.
I know I've been to many a track meet where there's betting going on in the stands.
Well, I mean, you know, people ask the question: is it a sport if it doesn't have points, or if it doesn't have some? If it's up to a judge, it's not a sport. Some people think, but to me, if you can't bet on it, it's not a sport. So there you go.
I mean, you can bet on the weather. So,
well, I'm talking about legally. You can't legally bet on the weather.
I understand. I mean, you could make a lot of arguments that way. I'm not going to get into all that, but I do think if we're just talking purely the next chance, the gymnastics team, I think next week's in the national finals with just 7 other teams. They got a chance. Now they're number 6. It's not a good chance. And then track, I think the men's team's number 5, women's team's number 6. They got a chance. So I don't know. I mean,
let me know if it happens. I'll be here on the show next Thursday, this Thursday after that. I don't think I have a vacation coming for a little while. So you let me know if they win one of those titles, and I'll put it in the newsletter if you want. I mean, you know, people who subscribe to our – by the way, our newsletter is growing and growing, and if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, you should, because I think it's – I know I'm biased, but I think it's a pretty good one.
It's good stuff. Six days a week, 6 mornings in your inbox,
it's
all
free.
The latest Louisiana news. It's free. Louisiana sports news and sports betting news. NOLA.com/Bayou Bets. You put in your email address and you get it automatically. Jerry's here.
My man, Jerry. What's up?
Back again. We appreciate you. Let's talk some Pels.
Right.
138-131 was the final in OT. The Pels covered the closing spread of 6.5, which is just one of those. Like, if you had the Grizzlies plus 6.5 and you didn't do any hedging, I'm sorry. That's just a bad day.
Man, that's brutal. Well, we got daily best bets. We got it at 5, but that was before we, you know, I knew something was up earlier in the day. And when I posted it, you know, I was talking with my son. He was like asking me what this line doesn't make any sense. I'm like, you're right. I'm like, they know something and we don't. And at the time it hadn't been announced that Ja Morant wasn't playing. And so you had to figure that he wasn't going to play. And I almost like mentioned it in daily best bets and didn't. And, sure enough, about an hour after I think I posted daily best bets, it was announced he wouldn't play. And I'm surprised it only moved the line 1.5, or really a point, because it was 5.5 in most places. It was 5. I think it was DraftKings at 5, or FanDuel. I don't remember which one. But everybody else was 5.5. So they had already kind of moved the line because they had already kind of known, which was interesting. Yep. It's so interesting how they find these things out, and it doesn't get out till hours later. So I don't know who they have. They obviously have contacts on the inside, but that's, if you see a line that doesn't make sense, you can usually, not always, but you can usually infer that something is going to happen in the next couple hours. You're going to get an announcement that someone's not playing because it's recognized, and hence there you go.
Yeah, and that's interesting. But I mean, the Pelicans, and here's my thing: they showed a lot of grit. They showed a lot of heart, especially after just inexplicably blowing that lead late. For those who didn't watch it, like I said, up 6 with Trey Murphy, still had another shot at the free throw line. If he makes it, it's a 3-possession game, like it's over. But he misses. Memphis gets the ball, calls timeout, goes down court, and gets fouled, making a three-pointer and gets fouled. So now all of a sudden, this three-point game
that's
with
just
like
a lapse of
4.6 seconds left. Now, interesting, Memphis, instead of making the free throw to get within 2, they didn't have any timeouts left. And so for a while, I thought that would be the Pelicans' saving grace. They had used their last timeout to move the ball to the front court. And so you're like, okay, well, if the Pelicans just get the rebound, make both free throws, it's over anyway. Well, the Grizzlies tried to miss that free throw on purpose and get the rebound. And they didn't do it.
Came back to bite them, didn't it?
But then the Pelicans get the rebound, call timeout. Brandon Ingram commits an offensive foul on the inbound, so Memphis gets it back with no time off the clock. And then they get fouled again. This time they make one free throw, so we're now at a 2-point game. Second one
Jackson
they miss.
Was phenomenal for them.
Yeah. Second one they miss on purpose again. This is now with less than a second left. And in the scrum for the rebound, Jonas Valanciunas committed a foul. Was it Jonas?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was Jonas committed his 5th foul on the rebound. And so the Grizzlies get to go back to the free throw line.
His arms locked with the Grizzly.
Yeah. I mean, with 0.4, and you can't, it's hard to blame him. You got to get that rebound. So he fouls him.
Actually, that was Nance,
and then they make,
I think.
Yeah, maybe it was Nance. Yeah, I think it was Nance. So then the Grizzlies make both free throws, and all of a sudden it's tied, and it goes to overtime. But in overtime, the Pels hit. Trey Murphy had 2 threes right off the bat. They went on a 12-0 run to start overtime, and so this time they're actually able to hold the lead. But these are odds from our friends at Caesars throughout the game. The Pels, as we mentioned, they were favorites to start. By halftime, they're down by 15 points. They're plus 290 on the money line. They had cut the lead, I think, to 5 entering the fourth, 5 or 6.
5.
And so it's like plus 120. Okay, they got a chance at this. They're going to come back.
Went back to 14.
Yeah, went back to 14. You could have gotten them at plus 750. And then they go on this. They went on a 24-6 run in 4 minutes.
It's interesting, not to knock our friends at Caesars, but when it got, I had it on live, and as soon as it went to 750, I went to bet it. And I'm telling you, like I'm like doing it, and I'm hitting the button as soon as it said 750, and it said it's 700 except odds change, and I went to hit it again, and it said now it's 600 except odds change, and I hit it and I got it at 600. But I mean, it wasn't 750 for probably less than 10 seconds. So.
And this is the problem with live betting, right? It's like you're watching, even if you're not using a streaming service, which if you're using by the way, we could do a whole show on how bad the sports app is. It is awful. No wonder that company's going bankrupt. That's the worst app I've ever used.
Yeah, I don't like it. It is bad.
But even if you have like DirecTV or Cox Cable and you're watching the game like actually on live TV, you're still like 10, 15 seconds behind what's actually happening at the Smoothie King Center.
YouTube
and
TV,
so those live odds are moving.
Any streaming service, really, you're almost a minute behind.
Yeah.
Realistically, I mean, if you look at the score, will change, and that's why I don't want to have the app open too much on my phone when I'm watching the game, because I'll look and it'll say, it says, oh, it's 50-46. Oh, wait, it's 48-44 on my screen. So you know what's going to happen, and so I try not to leave it open too much.
I mean, I would recommend live betting during timeouts only, because
I actually would too, for sure.
Yeah, you're just not going to get the number you want, or during a video replay or some.
Or if you're watching, if the app will change simultaneously. So I mean, if you don't care about it being spoiled, you can watch it, but it definitely does change. You can watch what the score is, and you're going to know what's going to happen. But if you have a feel for when you want to bet, then keep it open, which is kind of what I was doing with the plus 750. I had a feeling, you could feel Memphis going on a tie there, but I still wanted to hedge Pels, and I didn't care. At that point, I didn't necessarily think the Pelicans were going to win. I wanted the value to get to where I wasn't going to lose, which I did. So anyway.
Yeah, and it did change fast, because the Pelicans scored 24 points in 4 minutes, a 24-6 run to go from down 14 to up 4 in 4 minutes. If they had kept up that scoring pace, I know you're not a math guy, Jim, but that's a 288 point pace for the whole game. 24 points. That's all-star game.
We can talk about this game we could talk about this game as long as we wanted to, but really let's talk about the Pelicans in the grand scheme of things now. And where, it's so weird that with 2 games left, we still don't know what their postseason future is. I mean, it's a very small chance, but they could still be the 6th seed. I mean, they'd have to have everything go right for them for that to happen. It's probably more likely that they would be the 9 than the 6, but right now you'd have to say there's about a 50 to 60% chance they're going to be the 8. Okay, so if you just think about that 10-game losing streak now, you think about, these are the things that I think about, and I can't help but think about the negative side of things, because if any of these things just change a little bit, how much different the Pelicans' future might look. Because if the 10-game losing streak, if you just win 3 of those, okay, if you just win 2 of them,
just go 2
if you
and
just
8.
win 2 of them, if you
2 and 8 is bad.
If you hold on against Golden State, you got a 17-point lead at halftime, and interestingly enough, down by 17 at halftime. Up by 17 at halftime against Golden State and lose. Down by 17 against Memphis and win. So what a weird just series that's going on here, and that's just an 8-day stretch for the Pelicans. But they hold on against Golden State or win 2 out of those 10 in the losing streak, or beat the Rockets on the road. And this is a completely different scenario that they're in right now. And now you're fighting to get as high as you can in the play-in, because as I explained in the newsletter this morning, it is super important to get 7 or 8. Obviously 7 is the best because you then host that 8 seed, and if you win, you move on and play the 2. But if you lose in that first game, you get another chance. If you get the 9-10, you don't get another chance. You lose that first one, not only do you not get another chance, but if you win the first one, you got to win another one. So it is a huge difference. Yeah, that 9 seed. And not only that, if you get the 9 or 10, you're guaranteed that even if you do advance, you got the 1. So it's not easy. There is a huge difference between 7-8 and 9 and 10. A huge difference. So for people that don't understand that, even if you get the 8, it's way better than getting the 9 and playing at home and then having to go on the road and win again.
Yeah, and the way the Pelicans are, if they get the 9, by the way, the 10 seed, who they would have to beat just to stay in it, could be the Dallas Mavericks. Could be Luka Doncic.
Very well. I actually think they've got to be the favorites right now if you look at who they have left to play.
And OKC kind of seems like they're running out of gas. They're in the 10 spot right now, but Dallas only a game behind it.
They're a 10.5-point favorite tonight, but yeah,
and we'll see. But the way it comes down to me, barring getting help from Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, it really hurt the Pelicans actually that the Lakers won last night. They could have certainly.
That's okay.
If the Lakers win and go up to, they're fighting for 5-6, and it's the Clippers in the play-in scrum. Well, the Pelicans own the tiebreaker over the Clippers. Yeah. They do not own the tiebreaker over the Lakers, which means they need the Lakers to lose both of their remaining games to pass them. And the Lakers I think they play Phoenix, who won't have much to play for by then, and then they play Utah at home, who they beat them on the road in a close game. And so the Lakers probably not going to catch them, but barring any help from the Lakers or the Warriors, the Pelicans are going to come down to, if they can win in Minnesota, they're going to get the 8 seed. If they lose in Minnesota, they're going to get the 9 seed. And so I think I would actually say it's less than 50-50 they get that 8 seed.
Oh, I don't.
The game against the Knicks matters, but they need help from somewhere to get anything higher. The thing is,
the game against the Knicks and if you're talking about 8 seed, the game against the Knicks doesn't matter. Because if they beat the Timberwolves, they're going to have the tiebreaker. So that's what it comes down to. You want to beat the Knicks anyway, because you want to have a chance if the Lakers or Clippers do falter. You want to be able to move up wherever you can move up. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're just talking about Timberwolves, who are going to be either the 8 or the 9, then it just comes down to Sunday's finale. So
that's exactly right. The only reason the Knicks game
the Pelicans are going to win that game
is if somebody else falters. If the Lakers
Pelicans are going to beat the T-Wolves.
Falter, then the Knicks game matters all of a sudden. So you certainly want to win it. It's your home finale, all that kind of stuff. That one's Friday. Then the Timberwolves game Sunday in Minneapolis, and then the play-in, I believe, Tuesday is the 7 versus 8 games, and next Wednesday is the 9 versus 10 games. That's right. And Friday, a week from tomorrow, would be the last games.
I just think it's so interesting that, and I'm not saying give them any wins. If you just throw out that 10-game losing streak, okay, just take that out. They're 41-29 in other games. Again, I'm not telling you to count them as wins or if they won or whatever. I'm just telling you how well they've really played except for that 10-game stretch. And that's, I think a lot of that 10-game losing streak had to do with the post-Zion effect. And kind of like last year, where they struggled in the beginning of the season and went 3-21 or whatever the hell it was. And the Zion questions that follow you and follow you and follow you. And that's where they were. And Zion went out, and I think that it affected them, not knowing what was going to happen there. And you keep saying, okay, we're going to check him. They check him. Okay, now he hurts his hamstring again. So I think they finally said, you know what, to hell with it, Joe Boo. I'll do it myself. I really think that's where they were. And so I think that's how they're playing right now. They're playing like, except for the lapse against Sacramento that you talked about. And obviously, I think that loss to Houston, as bad as it was, maybe it was a wake-up call, Zach, because they played like a completely different team after that. They playing like they care, and they know that they have to win. And that's where they are right now. That's why I'm confident they are going to win Sunday. I think they're going to win Friday night in the home finale, too, as well, against the Knicks. And I know the Knicks are a tough team, and they need to win as well, I believe, to move up a spot. But I think that when it comes down to it, they'll beat the Timberwolves, and they'll finish as the 8th seed. And they'll have to go to the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some scenarios here. If the Pelicans win both and the Lakers win both, but the Clippers and Warriors each lose a game, the Pelicans actually could get a 6th seed because it would be like a 4-way tie, and they would win the 4-way tie. So that's actually not impossible.
Well, the way this West Conference race is going, that's kind of how wouldn't you expect something like that to happen. But let's not put the card. I mean, my point of all this is we're 2 games left, and we still don't know what the hell is going to happen. Well, all we know is the Pelicans will have they will certainly have at least one extra game when this is all said and done. They will have an 83rd game. We just don't know where, when, who, what, why. I mean, the 5 things we asked for. We don't know any of those things.
How they do on Sunday in Minnesota and how they do in the play-in, to me, comes down to paint defense. They let teams get to the bucket way too easily.
By the way, it's looking less. Go ahead.
They made all these threes last night, but really that comeback was also due to the fact that they stiffened up defensively a little bit and got Memphis to miss some shots. So that's what they need.
You think any of their future opponents are going to leave Trey Murphy wide open?
Probably not. But
probably not a good idea.
I guess I'd rather leave Ingram open for 2 than Murphy for 3, just because of math. But that's anyway.
Well,
we'll move on. We'll talk some
Masters. And I know we're going to move on, but I thought that Memphis played that right. If Herb Jones beat you, he beat you. He's not going to do that. That's a 1 out of 10 thing there. And look, I love Herb Jones, and I love the way he plays defense, and he does hit the occasional 3 when you need him to, but he's not going to do that all the time. So, we're going to talk about that more, and I got to get my Datitude plug in. Rod Walker is going to be on the show in the morning, live at 9:15 a.m. here on all these same channels. And, we're going to spend probably 65% of the show talking about the Pelicans and what they need to do down the stretch, maybe a little Zion, and, and we'll get into the Saints here in a little bit, but we're also going to spend about the rest of the show will be on Saints. So it's all Pels and Saints tomorrow on Datitude.
Fantastic. On this show, we're going to move on and talk some Masters. These were the odds a few minutes before the show, as of 3:50 p.m., and they haven't changed all that much. I was just looking at the live odd board. Koepka did get that birdie. He's at plus 700 now, and Spieth's down at plus 1,000. So a little bit of a shift there, but everything else is pretty close to this.
Spieth had a little rough patch just now.
Yeah. Again, your 3 co-leaders right now are John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, and Victor Hovland. And McIlroy, by the way, the big difference, McIlroy's down to plus 2,000 because he had another
bogey. That's a shame.
So, yeah, he's falling a little bit.
Of
course, Rahm, Scheffler, and McIlroy were the favorites coming in, and 2 of them are still your favorites. Any big takeaways from today? The bad weather's coming. It did not come today, and we saw some low scores out there.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't take too much out of what today is, except for the fact that, we talk about the big 3, and 2 of the big 3 are doing what they do. It's not been the greatest day for Scotty, but I just don't think you can take all that much away, except to say that this puts Rahm in the catbird seat because the low scores are today, and you get a major advantage, I think, by jumping out to a lead today. I still think Hovland's going to fold. Koepka is a fighter, and so I certainly think that might be a decent play, but the upper hand absolutely has to go to John Rahm. And I said before the tournament that I didn't really like John Rahm because I only think it takes a couple holes for him to blow up and get ticked off at the world, and he could find himself falling back. But we'll see what happens. I just don't know how it's going to affect the starts and stops that we're going to have, because we're going to have them. How will that affect John Rahm? But again, jumping out to a big lead does help him, but you can't bet him at that price. You just simply, at least I can. I'm not telling you you can't. You can do whatever you want, but I just don't think that's a bettable number.
Yeah, and the hard part is, all these guys, Rahm, Scheffler, and McIlroy, all three of them, their numbers are so low.
Yeah.
Even to begin the tournament, that if you're putting a pretty big chunk on them, and you want to bet 3 or 4 other golfers, all of a sudden, if Rahm or Scheffler or McIlroy wins, even if you have it, you're not going to profit very much.
No.
So it becomes a difficult proposition, especially now that their live odds are down here. Scheffler plus 500. Well, he was like plus 650 to start. Rahm was plus 320. He was plus 950 to start, a little bit better. So these, by the way, are live below us. These are from just a minute ago on Caesars. So this is up to the minute. I subscribe to the theory that you cannot win the Masters or any major on Thursday, but you can lose it.
For sure.
I'll ask you this. Do you think Rory has lost it? And I think I know your answer.
I don't think that he's in any position to where he's going to be able to get back and win this thing. And I know, our friend Uncle Big Nick talks about how, he shot 73 and finished second last year. Well, this is a different year. And I get that he's from a place where it rains a lot and he's used to playing in those conditions, but I don't see how you can bet a guy that's 9 shots back right now. And he's not going to finish 9 shots back. He'll probably finish somewhere around even and be 7 shots back after a day. But with all that's going to go on, I just don't see how you can bet him to win right now, no matter. And you're not going to get the right price anyway. So it's not worth betting. I'd look more to, where do you go? I mean, a guy like Schauffele's intriguing. I always talk about, I'm not a big fan of betting Schauffele because he finds ways to, I don't want to say choke is the right word, but because he has won some big ones. But his game is intriguing to me, and he's kind of lying in the weeds. What is he, like plus 1,000, plus 1,100 right now?
I think it's more than that, actually. Let me check on that.
So I think
Schauffele
someone
is plus 2,200.
Okay, so just 3 shots off the lead with his game. I think he translates to a guy that doesn't mind the start and stop and thing. I don't think that's going to bother him. He's pretty even tempered. And it bodes well for Scotty too to be able to come back, but you can't bet him at that price. Again, that's another price you can't bet. So really right now, and I've got a piece of him already, I think Koepka at plus 700 is a great bet because I don't see him going away. And if you play this out from here 7 times, I think he's going to win at least once. So that's the way that I look at these things. When you give me those numbers, if you play this out 3.2 times, going forward, I don't know that John Rahm wins once. I'd rather have Koepka 7 times than Rahm 3.2 times, if that makes any sense. So I think there's more value in betting a Brooks Koepka, and I certainly think that there's value there. Again, to me, a guy like Schauffele at -4, who's tied for 5th at the moment, I think is a great bet at plus 22.
I'll say this, and we talk about storylines for this Masters, and Rory's chasing the career Grand Slam, of course. And there's other ones too. Put? Yes, Scotty's going for a repeat, which means he's, he had to host the dinner, and now he's got all the interviews and those. So that's part of it too. And then you have the Live Tour thing, and you talk about Koepka.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Imagine Koepka and Rahm, or Koepka and Scheffler in that final group on Sunday, going down the back 9. Oh my goodness!
And all the Live guys would be out there watching it too.
The golf world would. Oh, it would be on a razor's edge.
As long as it's not Mickelson. A Live guy can win as long as it's not Mickelson. I'm good with that. I'll
tell you who I like if you want to go down the board a little bit. And he actually was 4 under earlier today and then struggled. He's at 2 under now. It's Joaquin Niemann we're talking about.
I love Joaquin Niemann. I've got a big piece of him as well. Yeah,
love his game.
He went through a little. He didn't fare well, I think, on Amen Corner, but. I like Joaquin Niemann as well, but he's a guy that I worry about starts and stops. He can be a little fiery at times. I don't know how his game's going to translate there. You want kind of even tempered guys that are going to have to. I mean, this tournament could end Monday. You just don't. Probably won't. It'll probably finish Sunday. They'll find a way, but they don't know when they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play in some weird conditions, but it'll be fun. The Masters is always fun.
Give me like Rahm and Koepka in the last group, and like Scheffler and Cam Smith in the second to last group.
No, I'd take that.
clouds over the fair,
Oh yeah,
over Augusta.
yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, let's
I
have.
got a
Let's
lot
have.
in Cam Smith. He shot mine. He was -2 today. Played well in the back nine. Had a little. I don't know if he had a double somewhere, if he bogeyed 2 in a row, whatever. But he was kind of up and down today. But that's where my money is right now. So I'm obviously rooting for him to have a little comeback. He's 5 shots off the lead at the moment.
Actually, if you want max drama, and I know you don't want this because of where your bets are, but Rory somewhere in those last groups getting back into it would be part of that too. If we want max drama, with the
I'd rather win money than have max drama, but that's me.
All right, let's move on. We'll talk some Major League Baseball. Season started 1 week ago. We were all wearing our jerseys and all of that jazz. Anything change for you in 1 week? 1 week is just a little baby step in the Major League Baseball season. But, Tampa Bay Rays, for instance, they've moved up on this board. This is American League Championship odds. They're plus 800. I think they were plus 1,000. They've started 6-0. Have you seen anything that changes your mind on anybody yet?
The only team that maybe I take something, I was already high on them anyway. And now I've gone from thinking they were one of the best top 2 or 3 teams in the National League, and I know you got the American League odds up, but I thought they were one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the National League to thinking they're the best team in baseball. And I know it's only a week, but I think what the Atlanta Braves have done, they have 2 hurt starters. They got a start from a rookie, Dylan Dodd. They had Bryce Elder come and pitch, and still those guys were pitching lights out. And with their lineup, if their young pitchers come through and they get another Spencer Strider type guy, I think the Braves are going to be the best team in baseball, and I think they're a value still. I think they're plus 750 right now at Caesars futures to win the whole thing. And you see them plus 350 to win the National League. I think, and again, I don't want to let 1 week change my mind on too much. But again, I was on the fence with the Braves anyway, and now I really, if there's anything that's like made me go over a little bit and make me want to place a bet, it's betting on the Braves because look, I just think when they're healthy and the pitching rotation and the depth that they have with these rookies, and you talk about Dylan Dodd and you talk about Bryce Elder, and when these guys come back, can Charlie Morton make it through a season? Does it matter? And you look, Max Fried is who he is, and can Strider do it again? Man, with their lineup, I really think that they could have it all.
Yeah, that lineup is terrifying. I mean,
it really is.
They've had injury problems and all that, but like Michael Harris is batting 6th and Marcell Ozuna is batting 7th and stuff, and
right.
Like there is no break in that lineup.
No.
So we'll see. I agree with you. The Braves look real good. The Rays, it's a good start, and I like the Rays. And I know Horace just said people tend to sleep on them anyway. Obviously, a 6-0 start's not going to dissuade you from that. But they've also played the Tigers and the Nationals so far. So it's nice to, yes, you want to take care of business against those teams, and you can't take care of any more business than 6-0. But you'd be real disappointed if they were anything less than 4-2 against that schedule. So
they do things so weirdly in Tampa. Just the way they play and pitch.
It's a Florida thing.
I guess it is. And the Marlins aren't any good, so I don't know.
At least the Rays don't play in Jacksonville, and you get that game.
That is true. That is true. I'm just look, and it's hard for me because I've never been an American League guy. I mean, I found myself watching your Mariners because I don't know if it's because I'm invested in them or I like their announcers. First of all, both the TV and radio announcers are great, and that always draws me in because, as a lot of people know, I'm a play-by-play guy on the side, and
I've
a fun
always young team too. I mean, fun to watch.
They really are, and I've always been a broadcast aficionado, I guess is the way to put it. And so they're a fun team to watch. I like to listen to those guys, and so the Mariners are going to be my team to watch in the American League. But it's just something about American League baseball still, and I know they're trying to make it the same as much as they can, and it's definitely gotten shorter. And I like the new rules so far, but I don't know what it is. It's just something about AL baseball that I have trouble watching some teams in the American League.
This is really going to throw you for a loop in 6-7 years when they expand again. There's not even going to be an AL and an NL.
You're right. There might not be.
Everything. I mean, they all play each other now anyway. They're going to do everything by geography.
And that's probably why they're doing this the way they're doing this with the schedule. I don't deny that at all. I think, and look, at this point, if you would have told me that 5 years ago or 10 years ago for sure, I would have said, screw you, baseball, I'm done with you. But I mean, now they've bastardized the game so bad, it is what it is.
Nothing is worse than the ghost runner.
No, I mean,
Nothing.
I'm even for robo umpires now. We talked about this off the air. I think the strike zone is so awful. There are very few guys in the majors calling games consistently, or even it's so different one umpire to the next, and some umpires are so inconsistent. We talked about this with some of the guys that we've seen just doing Mariners games the last few days. I'm for the robo ump now, and I never would have thought that I'd be, but I hope that's the next change, because they should try it.
Yeah, and they're trying in the minor leagues, and I think it will come. Here's what I have to say about, like, people say, it's just one pitch. I screwed up one pitch, and it wasn't even strike 3 or ball 4. It's just one. Look,
Several
two things. If the difference between a 1-2 count and a 2-1 count, or 2-2 and 3-1, or whatever it is, with the way pitchers, like, people say, these guys swing for the fences, and now they strike out 150 times a year. It's the hitter's fault. These pitchers are witches, man. Yeah. They're throwing these balls that, like, they don't follow the laws of physics.
Ohtani.
And so, number one, you can't be taking advantages away from a hitter and make a 3-1 count, a 2-2 count, or take away a walk and make him hit again. Or, like, it's hard enough to hit. And number two, the umpires, like, they're human beings. I think generally they do a pretty good job. But the more you have movement on a pitch and the more 100-mile-an-hour plus pitches you have, it's harder to call that accurately. Yeah, so we have the technology to do it. Why not use it? And
fans want runs anyway. So I would rather just see a robotic strike. And I'm no guy that, robots are going to take over the world, says Elon Musk. But, I think that at this point in time, I think this is where you got to go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And that's a topic for another day. We'll move on. Our last topic before our rants today is NFL draft. I know some of you were waiting for this. We have some odds movement on the top pick today. Chris Mortensen, ESPN, came out and said, the Panthers don't actually like C.J. Stroud. Everybody should change their mock drafts. It's Whatever. Bryce Young. And the odds shifted. C.J. Stroud at Caesars was minus 250 to be the top pick this morning. You see he's now minus 165. So we have some movement toward Bryce Young. I know that it came off the board, at least at a couple of sports books briefly today. Ultimately, is that a smokescreen to try to get the Texans to stay? I don't know why the Panthers would really care what the Texans do at this point, but who do you think the Panthers take?
I can't imagine, and I don't mean this as disrespect to C.J. Stroud. I can't imagine that they're dumb enough not to take Bryce Young. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I don't know who would think that C.J. Stroud is better than Bryce Young, because, I mean, he's got better size. Other than that, Bryce Young, to me, could be the next Drew Brees with speed. I mean, that's how good this kid could be. And I look, as a guy who wants the Saints to win the NFC South, because, it makes things more fun around here and easier for us to do our jobs when the Saints are good. Please, by all means, Panthers, take C.J. Stroud, but major, major value on Bryce Young. I don't buy it at all. I would be very surprised, and I would have said this 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and before. Chris Mortensen, who's 83 years old, came out and said this morning whatever he said. I would be shocked if they maybe not shocked, but very surprised if they don't take Bryce Young, and there's major value at plus 130 there.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It's just
They're
hard.
Not that dumb.
Like, there will be a time in the days leading up to the draft when you start to see these odds move fast. And it's just like you said with the Ja Morant not playing for the Grizzlies thing. That's the time to jump on it if you're paying attention.
It's going to change.
Jump on it. You will see these odds move fast,
for
and it
sure.
will tell you who the number one pick is going to be. It happened last year
with
the Jaguars and Travon Walker, who was a long shot, and then all of a sudden
Yep.
he went from 10-1 to minus 150 in 2 hours.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, somebody figured something out, and they were right. And it happened like
something.
the day before the draft. Yeah.
So somebody got tipped off. It doesn't matter what all these guys say. Yeah, it doesn't matter what all these guys say. It matters what Vegas says. We say that all the time, and that's where we are now. You can like it or not like it and say betting's doing this, and it's everybody thinks something's ruining the world, okay, in some form or fashion, whether it be sports, politics, whatever. Something's ruining the world, and guess what? None of it's ruining the world. We're all still existing. We're all still enjoying life, and it's the same with Vegas. I mean, You want to know what's going on, watch Vegas, because they know before anyone else knows, and that includes Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
And Jeff Duncan,
yes.
for that matter.
I agree with that. How about the Saints? Saints have had Hendon Hooker and Clayton Tune, the Houston quarterback, in on visits this week. They're not going to use their first 2 picks on quarterbacks. That would be a total shock. But could you see 3rd, 4th, 5th round they take a young quarterback?
I will say this. I think that if they take a quarterback with one of their first 2 picks, their offseason immediately changes from an A- to me to a C. Instantly. They wasted a draft pick. Yeah. It would make 0 sense. And I think the Saints are just throwing up smoke screens. They never pick who you think they're going to pick anyway. But that being said, if somehow, some way, and I don't think it's going to happen, if Hendon Hooker fell to the 3rd pick, to the round 3, which again, I don't think is going to happen. But if somehow it happened, I wouldn't mind them picking a Hendon Hooker there with round 3. But you're talking about someone that's not going to play anytime soon, besides the fact that he's recovering from an ACL injury, and besides the fact that he's going to be 25 years old this year. Jameis Winston is the backup quarterback right now. He doesn't want to leave. Obviously, he loves being here. So he seems content to be the backup quarterback, which means he could be here for quite a while. He could be the next Chase Daniels, right? I mean, he doesn't mind it. So if he's going to stay here for that long, unless someone's willing to say, I'm going to give Jameis a starting job, which I don't think is coming anytime soon. Jameis Winston could be here for 4 or 5 more years and back up Derek Carr that long. So there's just no need for the Saints to draft a backup quarterback or a rookie quarterback. But again, if someone like that was available in the 3rd round and you wanted to spend one there, maybe. But they have too many needs, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about it with Rod tomorrow, and I know that you think the interior is where to go. You want defensive linemen. Most mock drafts have defensive linemen. I don't agree. I think the Saints need a running back more than they need a defensive lineman. I think they need an offensive lineman more than a defensive lineman. But that being said, they certainly need a defensive lineman more than they need a quarterback. So let's see how they play it out and how it plays out. But I think bringing in quarterbacks is just nothing but one big smoke screen, and I wouldn't buy anything into that.
Yeah, I don't know if Jameis Winston. I think eventually he will want to start again, and someone will offer him that opportunity if he looks good at all, or even if he doesn't, because sometimes the devil you don't know is better than the devil you do, and some of these teams will just want to change of scenery.
I don't think so.
But even if that's the case, even if Jameis leaves next year, if you draft a quarterback, let's say you even draft Hendon Hooker, who probably wouldn't be ready this year anyway. Okay, fine. But you use a 3rd-round pick on a guy. If things go well with Derek Carr, he's going to be here at least 3 years. At least.
Oh, more than
probably
that.
More like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, now,
easily,
what, are you betting on things not going well with Derek Carr? Like, why would you use a 3rd-round pick on a guy? By the time that Derek Carr would leave, Hendon Hooker could be 30 years old and have no NFL experience to speak of.
Well, that's also another thing. I don't know that you want to put doubt seed in the mind of Derek Carr, because if you draft a quarterback early, you have to be putting that seed in his mind, right? I don't think they're going to do that. I just don't think they want to do that. I just don't think bringing in these guys matters at all. And I still see people, the Derek Carr haters are still floating all over the place saying they need to draft Hendon Hooker and blah, blah, blah. You're wasting a draft pick if you do that early. You can like Derek Carr, you can hate Derek Carr, but it makes 0 sense at this point whether you like him or hate him. 0 sense to draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, really 3. Again, if somebody like Hooker falls to the 3rd round, you have to think about it. And we talked about Malik Willis last year when he kept dropping, and would the Saints think about taking him? Hindsight's 20/20, and it's a good thing they didn't. But
that was a different situation too. They
completely
didn't have a
different.
Long-term.
That's exactly right. So anyway,
I do wonder a lot of this can be smokescreens. If the Saints talk to Hendon Hooker, then somebody might think they might pick him at 40 and be willing to offer him a bunch of picks to move up.
Yeah,
and so that can be part of it too.
That's also part for sure. Yeah,
we'll see.
Don't be surprised if the Saints do make trades and get more draft picks. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. So don't be surprised they trade their 2nd or their 3rd round pick and get to move around. And they've been known. It's almost weird now if the Saints don't make draft day moves. So I think in some form or fashion you'll see them try to acquire more. Sometimes they're trading away picks, and for their future. But I think at this point, I think they know that they need a little bit more, some help in there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they traded to get some more, even if it's later round picks.
And getting more picks can help you with your salary cap situation too, because if you hit on some of them, those guys are cheap for 4 years.
Well, and Zach, we talked about, and I know we need to move on now, but a later round pick, I think you're more likely to get an interior defensive lineman that could come in and play right away if you get the right one. And you could take a couple shots at it later in the draft and find one that maybe could start. I like I said before, I think other than the top 6 or 8, and I'd have to go look at a list and figure it out and spend more time on it, but more times than not, every year in the NFL, I think that besides the top 6 or 8, interior defensive linemen are a dime a dozen, and you can plug them in from almost anywhere and do what you want them to do. And I think you could get one in the draft that could work, or you can go out in free agency and get another one that's cheap. But I think they're doing well okay there. And at some point they're going to need exterior linemen, right? Because Cam Jordan's not going to play forever. We'll see what happens.
I don't know, man. When you get a Chris Jones or a Fletcher Cox or something, like these guys.
Oh, there you go. That's what I'm saying. You get top 6 or 8. You give me 8 names and then go to the next one and tell me if I can't find somebody that, okay, big deal, I can find somebody that's almost as good as them.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe they think they can get one of those guys late in the round. But we'll move on. Plenty of draft talk to come. It starts 3 weeks from tonight, April the 27th. So that's coming up. We're going to do our rants to end today's program. And I'm going to go back to the NBA for mine, Jim. I am getting every night the Pelicans play, and like their radio guy does it, right? Like it's like, oh my God, this
Todd
is getting
Graffanini.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, it's just like it's like listening to a guy who can't believe what he's watching, and oh my God, they fell behind 15 points in the second quarter, and then somebody will text you and say, oh, I have a friend in Dallas. My Mavericks are terrible tonight. They're down by 20, and you look, I open up the ESPN app, and I'm like, they're down by 18 early in the second quarter, like. Have you guys never seen an NBA game before? The game is not over ever in the first half. It's never over in the first half. I don't care if you're down 30. Now, if you're down 30 in the fourth quarter and everybody pulls their starters, okay. But we even saw last night, Pelicans and Grizzlies, the game's almost never over. A 6-point game with 5 seconds left wasn't over. A 14-point game with 8 minutes left certainly wasn't. Like, these teams are so good, they can go on runs so fast. You got to stop calling NBA games over or saying a team is up against it. Or like I'm to the point where I would almost rather be down 10 in the second quarter than up 10 in the NBA. I mean, obviously, you mathematically you can't say that, but it's like the team that's down 10 has this edge, and the team that's up 10 relaxes, and it flips by the third. Like you see that, so we saw it in the NBA Finals last year. The Warriors did that to the Celtics twice in that 6-game series where they flipped the game around. I just don't. I don't get it. You've seen hundreds and hundreds of NBA games, and people still say these games are over. They're not over.
You know what this tells me? It tells me, and boy, we don't have enough people probably watching to get too pissed off about it, but it tells me that there is no defense in today's game, and it strengthens even more the fact that the players from my day, quote unquote, were better players. The game was. If you had a 17-point lead at halftime in 1995 or 2000, it was over. The game was over. Michael Jordan didn't blow 17-point leads. You saw it last night even, and the Lakers didn't win. And it shows what kind of heart this team has, by the way, as I go my ADHD rant. They cut a 20-some-odd deficit to like 6 points, and when they got down by 12 again, they quit like they always do. I mean... But anyway, it goes to your point is there's just no defense, and if anyone wants to have a debate on who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, we can have that friendly debate. I'll set you up, and maybe we'll have a few people on, and we'll debate it all day long. But it's not close, and it goes to show why I can't take any player in today's game as serious as I took them 25, 30 years ago.
You really are an old.
Oh, I know, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm glad you're okay with it. The rules were different back then, too. Like, number one, nobody took three-pointers. Like, even the team that takes the fewest three-pointers in the NBA today takes way more than anybody took in 1999, first of all. So catching up's a little bit easier, and defending's harder because the floor is spaced. Plus, they don't let you get away with nearly as much physical contact. So, yeah, it's easier to come back. It's harder to play defense. I don't think it's any great indictment of modern players' effort or anything. I think it's harder to play defense.
It's the reason why I have a hard time watching the NBA when it's not the Pelicans. And the Pelicans are the hometown team. We have to talk about them all the time. I enjoy watching. I like this group of guys. I love the coach. I like the chemistry among the players, so I don't have a hard time watching this team. But I got to be honest, I have a hard time watching today's NBA because it's not basketball. It's show me. It's just not as nearly as fun. And it's why, and basketball is the only sport where I enjoy college basketball way more than I like the NBA. And even in college, you're starting to see that more and more. But I mean, the women's game, they don't pass up driving layups to kick out to threes. They're starting to do that now in the men's game. It's just not as fun.
I don't enjoy it as much. That's the analytics at work.
I get it.
One thing that you do enjoy watching, as I segue into your rant, because I know you got another one in you. As you watch this first round at Augusta, Jim, could golf be entering its golden age?
I really think that it is. I don't think it's entering. I think it's in, and it's kind of been in there for a little while now. You go through different periods, and when I was a kid, Jack Nicklaus was the greatest golfer ever, and before me, Arnold Palmer was the greatest golfer ever, and before him, you can pick 1-2 guys out, and Tom Watson kind of challenged Jack Nicklaus again. And then Tiger Woods came along, and who was as good as Tiger Woods? No one. Not even close. And so now we're into an age where as good as guys like Scotty Scheffler are, John Rahm is, as good as Rory McIlroy, there are so many there are 25, 30 fantastic golfers, and it makes golf unpredictable. It makes it fun to watch, and they all pull shots out of who knows where. I mean, it's amazing how good these guys are. And if you have any interest in golf whatsoever, you need to turn on the Masters this weekend, because this is just the start. And again, I have always been a golf fan, but really I found myself the last 5 years, and not just because of betting and makes it, you have a little bit more to root for, but it's just there are so many guys that are in it week after week after week after week. And it's to the point where you just don't know who's going to win. And you can say that the top 3 are the best golfers in the world, and maybe Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer in the world, but that could change week to week. It's not like when Tiger won, when it was almost a surprise if he didn't win. So that's where we are right now, and I love it, and I can't get enough of it.
Well said. Well said. It's a lot of fun, and betting on golf's a ton of fun, too. I had not done a lot of it before last year. But anything's more fun when you have a rooting interest, and to be able to follow your guys versus everybody else and have something riding on every shot. It is a lot of fun. So enjoy the Masters. One more check on those live odds before we go. John Rahm still your favorite, plus 320. Scheffler just got a birdie to move to 4 under. He's at plus 450. Co-leaders Brooks Koepka plus 650. Victor Hovland plus 900. And then it's Jason Day at plus 1,000. He
playing well right now.
5 under, excuse me.
Yeah.
And by the way, the next two, Cam Young and LSU's own Sam Burns, are next at plus 1,800. So super interesting tournament, and we hope you enjoy it. We hope you have a happy Easter and a great Easter weekend. Those of you going on vacation, travel safe, please. And we will be back with you. Jim's going to be back with you tomorrow morning at 9:15 for Datitude with Rod Walker for some Pels and Saints talk. And then we will be back here at 4 o'clock on Monday for Bayou Bets. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel. Get that notification button up. That way you'll never forget when we do go live. Love to have you guys join in and comment on the show. It's a ton of fun. And we will be back with you on Monday. So for our producer, Zoe Collins-Rath, and for Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing. This has been Bayou Bets.